Generating polynomial equations from their roots. Problem is 2, 4. These are the roots of a polynomial equation which you must create. Here is how you create it. X minus 2, x minus 4 equals 0. You switch the signs and put them in expressions, quantities, as x minus 2, x minus 4. And then you multiply these out. The multiplication from this is nothing new. It goes clear back to Algebra 1. It's the FOIL method, and you're going to use this over and over again for this lesson this week. X times x is x squared. X times minus 4 is minus 4x. Minus 2x plus 8. And then add like terms. X squared minus 4x minus 2x is minus 6x. And then plus 8. This is your polynomial equation. -3, -1, and 4. You're going to change the signs to make it x plus 3, x plus 1, and x minus 4. Set that equal to 0. You will multiply these out. You can multiply these in any order. 5 times 2 is 10. 2 times 5 is 10. So that means you can multiply these two together first or these two together first. It makes no difference. I am going to multiply the back two together first. X times x is x squared. X times minus 4 is minus 4x. 1 times x is x, and 1 times -4 is -4. Simplify. X squared minus 4x plus x is minus 3x. And now you still have one more multiplication to do. X plus 3 times the quantity of x squared minus 3x minus 4. So here's how you do that. X times each of these. So x to the third minus 3x squared minus 4x. And then 3 times each of these. That would be 3x squared minus 9x minus 12. And then simplify. X to the third. And then negative 3x squared plus 3x squared is just 0. Negative 4x minus 9x is negative 13x, and then minus 12 equals 0. No need to leave that space in there, just make it x to the third minus 13x minus 12 equals 0. This one has a -1/2, 2, and 3/4. And before we do this one, just a reminder that the purpose of the lesson is not add, subtract, multiply, and divide fractions. You must be efficient with that previously. The process is still the same even though it is fractions. So we will set it up as x plus 1/2, x minus 2, and x minus 3/4. Multiply these in any order, the first two quantities, the last two quantities, or the first and last, whichever you want to go to. I am going to do it this way. We will keep the x plus 1/2 and then multiply here to get x squared minus 3/4 x minus 2x plus 3 over 2. Negative 2 times a negative 3/4 is a positive 6 over 4. 6 over 4 reduces to 3 over 2. Now you must add like terms. Technically you don't have to, but if you don't, you end up with a bigger mess to deal with down the road. So let's go ahead and simplify. Keep your x plus 1/2 and then the x squared. You have negative 3/4 minus 2. If I change this 2 to a denominator on the bottom of 4, that makes the 2 8. Negative 3 minus 8 is 11. So minus 11 over 4x, and then plus 3 over 2. So now you can do your last multiplication without having that extra term already in there. So we have to multiply x plus 1/2 times x squared minus 11/4 x plus 3/2. So let's start with the x term here and come up with x to the third minus 11 over 4 x squared plus 3/2 x. And now we will switch to the positive half and multiply it by each of these. So that would give us 1/2 x squared, and then minus 1/2 times a negative 11 over 4 is the same thing as a negative 11 over 8. And that's x. And then we have 1/2 times 3/2, which would be 3/4. Simplify. We have x to the third, and then here we have negative 11/4 plus 1/2. If I change this half to a denominator of 4, that means it would be 2 over 4. Negative 11 plus 2 is a negative 9. So a negative 9/4 x squared. 3/2 minus 11/8. The common denominator here would be 8. If I make this an 8, I had to multiply by 4. So this would be 12. 12 minus 11 is 1. So plus 1 over 8x. And then plus 3/4. All of this equals 0. This is not your final answer because your polynomial equations must have integer coefficients, no fractions at all. So we have in a denominator here 4, 8, and 4. If I multiply through by 4, it's not going to change anything with this. I'll still have an 8 or some kind of denominator on the bottom. So I have to multiply by the highest multiple of what we have in here. An 8 will cancel out an 8. It will also cancel out a 4 and a 4. If I multiply all of these by 8, I will come up with 8x to the third minus 8 times 9/4. 8 times 9 is 72. 72 divided by 4 is 18. So minus 18x squared. Multiply this by 8. It becomes 8 over 8, which is just 1. And then multiply this by 8. 8 times 3 is 24. Divided by 4 is 6. So this down here at the bottom is your final answer. Here's another one. 3/2, 4/5, and 3. Generate the polynomial equation that comes from these roots. Change the sign of each when you're putting them into the quantities. X minus 3/2, x minus 4/5, and x minus 3. Multiply these in any order. I like to leave the one out front alone for right now. in each case. So I'll leave x minus 3 halves alone, and then multiply the back two. X squared minus 3x minus 4/5 x, and then plus 12 over 5. Simplify your like terms in that second quantity so you don't have an extra one to deal with later on. So x minus 3 halves, and then x squared, we have negative 3 minus 4/5. The denominator is 5. If I make this denominator 5, I have to multiply this by 5. So that gives me negative 15. Negative 15 minus 4 is a negative 19. And it would be over 5. And then plus 12 over 5. Again, denominator of 5 makes this a 15. Negative 15 minus 4 is negative 19 over 5. You have one last multiplication to do. It is the two quantities together. You can start with x and multiply everything in here by x. When you do that, you get x to the third minus 19 over 5 x squared plus 12 over 5x. And now you have to move to the minus 3 halves. Multiply this by each item in here, a negative 3 halves times each item. So that would give me a negative 3 halves x squared, and then plus 57 over 10 x, and then minus 36 over 10. 3 halves, a negative 3 halves times a positive 12/5, that's a negative. 3 times 12 is 36. 2 times 5 is 10. 36 over 10 is 18 over 5. So now we have to add like terms. So we only have an x to the third to deal with, so it's finished. But over here we have negative 19 over 5 minus 3 over 2. Our common denominator will be 10. So that means I multiply this by 2 to get a negative 38. This by 5 to get a negative 15. Negative 38 minus 15 is a negative 53. So it would be a negative 53 over 10, x squared. Here, 12/5 plus 57 over 10. The common denominator is 10. I'd have to multiply that 5 by 2. 12 times 2 is 24. 24 plus 57 is 81. So plus 81 over 10 x, and then minus 18 over 5. All of this is equal to 0. But you cannot express your polynomial equation with fractions in it. We just want to get rid of those. Multiplying through here by 5 is not going to change our result. We will still have fractions because 5 is lower than the highest denominator, which is 10. If I multiply each of these by 10, it will cancel these 10s out, and it will also cancel out the 5. So let's multiply by 10 and come up with 10x to the third minus 53 x squared plus 81x minus 36 equals 0. Multiplying by 10 here cancels out this 10, leaves you with this. Multiplying by 10 here cancels the 10 out, leaves you with 81. And then multiplying by 10 here cancels out the 5, but 10 over 5 is 2. So 2 times 18 is 36. You're left with this equation. negative 6/5, negative 1/4, and 3. We want to generate the polynomial equation from these roots, and first we will start with x plus 6 over 5, and then x plus 1/4, and then x minus 3. All of this equal to 0. I'm going to leave x plus 6 over 5 alone and multiply the back 2 to come up with x squared minus 3x plus 1/4 x, and then minus 3/4. Leaving the first quantity alone again, I will go to the second one and simplify the middle terms. Negative 3 plus 1/4. A denominator of 4 is needed here. If you do that, 4 times 3 is 12. Negative 12 plus 1 is negative 11. So minus 11 over 4x, and then minus 3/4. Alright, so it is the first quantity multiplied against the second one. Start with your x term and get x squared, or no, x to the third, and then minus 11 over 4x squared minus 3/4 x. And then move to the 6/5. 6/5 multiplied by each of these. You would have 6/5 x squared minus 66 over 20. 6/5 times a negative 11/4 is a negative 66 over 20. 66 over 20 is the same as 33 over 10. Always reduce when you can as you're doing it. And then here times this. That's going to be a minus. 6/5 times 3/4 is 18 over 20. 18 over 20 is the same thing as 9 over 10. So now add your like terms. You have an x to the third, and then negative 11/4 plus 6/5. The common denominator must be 20. That means this will be a 55, and this will be a 24. Negative 55 plus 24 is going to be a negative 31. Negative 31 over 20, x squared. And then move over to this one. A common denominator is not 40, it's going to be 20. So multiply by 5 here to get a 15, and multiply by 2 here to get a 66. Negative 15 minus 66 is a negative 81. And that's going to be over 20. And then of course 9/10 is left at the end. Now multiplying through by 20 will take care of your fractions. So we should have 20x to the third minus 31x squared minus 81x minus, and then remember you're multiplying by 20. 20 over 10 would be 2, and then times the negative 9 would be negative 18. This is your equation.